Hey, good morning, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. We'll just give it another minute or two. Looks like we're missing some people. Okay, it is already 2 after, so let's go ahead and get started. So for today, we would like to start off the meeting with goals for 2023 and just the future of Magma, as things have, I'm sure y'all have noticed, have changed a little bit and things are in flux. So I have invited Mark here to give a quick update from the board.
Thanks, Kendall. Hi, everybody. So as you know, right, we talked about this during the last TSC session. The board is progressing with its changes to make this project a community-led project, which means there will be no board of directors left, and this project will be led by the TSC. Now, before dismantling the board, we are empowering the TSC to manage the project going forward. So the TSC composition and governance will be reviewed to ensure the structure makes sense for a TSC-led project. And this is something that the LF is familiar with, so they'll be helping us in this formation. Sam, Sikdar, and the LF will help lead the formation of the new TSC going forward and ensure that we have a balanced and efficient structure. Now, the funds that are left over from the 2022 budget will be allocated to support the project for 2 years. We're looking at placing half the funds for 2023 and then the other half for 2024. And the funds would be bucketed in categories that support community outreach activities, as well as tools and third-party services. And the details of how these funds would be allocated would be worked through the new TSC in 2023. So the LF will continue to play an oversight role and support the community with operational tasks, maintenance of the website, supporting marketing activities, and of course, managing the financials. But with this change, the paid for services model that was put in place as a temporary measure to help the community transition from a meta-led project to a community project is coming to an end. And at the board meeting, we received a proposal from TNG to help with the final steps of this transition. So in today's TSC, TNG will walk through the proposal and seek validation from the community that these tasks are valuable and aligned with the needs of those using Magma in end solutions. Once TNG finishes this work, it'll be up to the community to decide how best to maintain the project going forward. So our goals here, coming from the board, is to minimize the impact to the community with this transition, this final step, and maximize the use of the remaining funds and allow them to be available for the growth of this project over the next, months and years. With that, well, first, any questions on this before I pass it over to Max? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Max, I'll pass it over to you now.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Let me just try to share my screen. And that probably will work with some issues. And now I'm able to share that. So yeah, so the support that TNG will or proposes to be contracted for is to support the transition, support the period after or the Q1 next year, and to support to mitigate potential issues with releasing. Since we are right now in the middle of the Artifactory switchover, since the CI and DevOps is still mainly owned by contracted engineers, and since the TSC structures are expected to change and to establish within the start of Q1, we assume that it will be rough and it will be complicated, and there we propose to stay as a safety net for Q1 with a small team of, I think, 5 is right now the proposal, and the proposal is to also ramp them down with already within Q1, so it's not 5 for the full quarter. And the proposal is to support the, in quotes, soft landing of the transition by keeping the state for the releases 1.8 and 1.7, so that they in their form stay installable and do not so that they are tested and that they are maintained in the way so that they can be tested, and that companies currently evaluating these releases do not suffer under the shake or under the chaos that or under the fallout that might occur. That's the first important thing. It's that also means that we plan to support the CI and the infrastructure for the latest master also. But one of the main goals is also to keep the current releases in a state where they are good and where they do not suffer under dependency changes or under changes in the external operating system. The second thing is, we want to continue to keep the GitHub Actions CI alive, especially with the implications of the upcoming shutdowns of services, and with the change in structure. There is also expected to be some loss in and we want to mitigate that. And the third thing is, right now we collected a lot of knowledge, and we collected a lot of also permissions in some sense and keys to systems, in quotes. And we want to hand everything off to the community so that the community is enabled to continue and to be able to have the full control of the of all the infrastructure, either via LF or directly. And we also propose to have monthly town hall meetings in which we collect feedback from the community and try to understand what needs special attention, and also try to hand off and share knowledge in these meetings. And yeah, work closely with the community. So that's a very short proposal. It's way shorter than the Google Doc that was discussed initially regarding the transition to a community mode. That's just the support and keeping the being a safety net and enable a soft landing for the transition proposal. And it's also way smaller budget-wise. So that's the one thing that the governing board would propose to allocate money for, and then after that hand everything off to TSC so that the TSC can do their own choices and can lead the project. That's the TNG side part of that transition of that proposal. Are there questions to that?
So Max, this will be whatever we propose as part of our Google Docs. So everything will be covered as part of this transition to community, or?
No, the effectively the Google Doc was voted against, and instead the decision was to give the control to the TSC, and the TSC will can then do what was described in the Google Doc in the plan to transition or in the plan towards community mode project. And there are, I think there are several good goals that would be good to follow, but they are not part of the proposal now. That's this proposal that we are discussing, or that's coming from TNG, is just mitigate or just support the transition, the Q1 next year, so that the TSC can assemble and get actionable and get able to start without losing all support start next year.
Max, can you give more
Yeah,
details of the scope that, yeah, sorry. Can you give more details of the scope of what this cut down team would do?
Cut down? Which cut down?
You said that you are going to propose the cut down team from TNG to help the transition, meaning smaller team.
Yeah.
To help the transition. So what would be the scope of this transition team, and is it only for Q1, or you are envisioning that this will last for longer?
This proposal here that is right now in the hands of the governing board, that came out of the governing board, is to support for Q1. And afterwards, the TSC can decide how to continue. The TSC could decide that, hey, let's continue with external support by TNG. but it's this proposal right now is just to keep to have the support for Q1 and give all the rights and all the responsibilities and all the control to the TSC, and that can then decide how to continue.
Okay, I mean, let me go with sub question because you didn't really address my original question. Are you planning to train some of the community members to be able to take over the CI/CD?
Yeah.
Are you planning to further optimize and develop on CI/CD? Are you planning to change something on the build processes or change something on the CI/CD? So what exactly do you plan to do in these 3 months?
Our plan is to keep stuff working and to hand it off to the community. So that's the last point here in this document. That's the we want to have everything handed off to the community in the sense that the community had the chance to get an understanding of the CI, has all the tools that are necessary to keep the CI working, and yeah. So the goal
So
is to
we will be- Yeah, so we are going to create some kind of document which will be a placeholder, or like which will tell about the items, and then people can try it out. To be something like that.
I have a hard time understanding you. Let me pick up my headphones. Maybe that makes it better. Or can you speak louder?
Yes, yes. Yeah, give me a second. Yeah, is it better now?
Yeah, it's quite difficult to hear, even for us, Yogesh. It looks like there's you'll have to speak loudly.
I can
Okay.
hear Yogesh. If you want, I can repeat Yogesh's question. So Yogesh's question was for Max, are you trying to create some document? So are you going to create some document explaining how we should take over the CI/CD pipeline?
The goal is to have documentation in place and to extend the DevOps documentation to be complete and to simplify and maybe streamline where helpful. I think that's also a good direction. And yes, it's or maybe instead of documents, we could have handoff meetings that are also recorded, or but yeah, the goal is to share the knowledge and to enable the community.
Yeah, I think we should probably start that, Max, right away, right? Because that goes without saying that, whatever that we have working right now is something that community should be aware of. So I think the documentation is the highest priority. The third point that you mentioned in this, we should not be waiting for that till February, March to do it. We should already start doing it now. This is my kind request. Going back to the point 1 and 2, so they keep the releases 1.8 and 1.7 at the current state, and also you're basically talking about maintaining it and also adding some additional work on top of that, or doing some additional work on top of that. Could you elaborate what kind of work that you would be doing for the point 1, and similarly for the point 2? Is it just the monitoring, or is there any development needs to be done?
I think we will continue our in the realm that where we are developing right now. We might need use some time to clean up and to improve the project. So we won't just laser focus on just accomplishing the goals that are written down here. So we might continue to work on some other parts and improve Magma. But the high-level goal is to mitigate Q1 drop of paid engineers and external resources. and that's the that's the core part of that SOW.
Yeah, that's where I kind of having a hard time to understand, right? So if the goal is to keep this whole thing running, meaning to me, the point is that what assumption is that it's already running, and that has to be handed it over to the community with proper documentation and training, right? I think that's the key part.
Yep.
And that to me is more like making sure existing thing is working and community is able to take over, right? That's what it means in practice. Now, there's a second part of it that you mentioned, that we will continue to improve. That part is unclear to me. What is that? What is there to improve?
Right now, the CI is still flaky, is still very complex, and we I think it's in the process of handing it off, of keeping it in a good state, of mitigating the issues as they arise. We might also find places where to improve, where to get rid of issues. Like I just today heard that we have an issue where if the VM is restarted multiple times, at some point it just does no longer boot the test VM. And this can also be reproduced on a local machine. If you vagrant up, vagrant destroy, vagrant up, vagrant destroy multiple times, it runs into an issue. So, and that's something where I would say that's a thing we would work on to improve it. And where we would help Magma to become to stay actionable. But the one of the big things in this keep it alive is also that in the last half year, multiple times the dependency set changed, and hot fixes were necessary, and that kind of work is also contained here.
Okay. So I think, would it be a good idea, Max, like, you are an expert in this because you have been working on this for a while. Would it be a good idea to list down whatever that you're telling that you're going to fix, and instead of you fixing them, have representative from the community to fix that, and that way the knowledge transfer actually happens in the process that starts today, right? So should we have to create some kind of an Excel sheet and list down what you're saying that you have in your head, which we don't know, right? Because you're the expert of that domain.
We have a GitHub issue tracker that has a huge amount of issues that everyone can tackle and work on. And you could have started half a year ago contributing and engaging with CI. We will continue that way. It will be public. We will track issues publicly, and it will be done in a way so that community can pick up and can engage, and that way the knowledge can be shared. Yes. Some has raised his hand and lowered his hand. Maybe I was too long in my.
If I may, I was just going to make a comment on this transition. May I?
Mm-hmm.
Since it's a big transition, there are people that are involved in different projects. Some of them will be continued to gain for stability. Some will be stopped, etc. I think two things to remember. As part of this transition, the board is interested in getting feedback in forms of town hall and community meetings. So as part of the TSC tweaking or streamlining, we'll be working with LF to do a couple of open forum town hall type meetings once a month going forward, and get some feedbacks from the broader community and a forum for people to come back and get feedback and have that to guide the efforts in the next 3 months. And the second piece is there are quite a bit of activities in flight at this time. TNG, other people that are developing, people that are in community. I think what we should do is put at least a spreadsheet or a document that very clearly defines what's in flight, and over the period of next 3 months, some that are going to be worked on, some that are going to be worked on the first month, some that are going to be worked on the second month, etc., etc. So there's less time in going back and forth verbally and in meetings. Rather have a document that people can contribute to and ask questions like these questions about what new features, what new stability. These are important questions. So Max, I'm happy to work with you in getting that put together.
Mhm.
So that people can rally around it and post comments and notes and feedbacks on that. And then that way we have some visibility monthly going forward to the soft landing and so on.
I agree, Som. I think that's the right way to do it, right? Instead of having it as an abstract, we list it down. Like Max mentioned, these are all the GitHub IDs that are available. So if you list down the list of GitHub IDs that's going to be worked upon for next 3 months, then we can come back as a community and provide this is must, this is not required, this must, this is not required, and also have representation from communities. So I think the key of this transition is a representation from community outside of TNG, working together with TNG to address all those items that you mentioned in the Excel sheet is going to be the success, right? Otherwise, we will, after 3 months, we will end up in the same situation where the community isn't able to take over. Somehow we need to create some poll and identify who in community will work together with TNG during this transition period, track through the Excel sheet, not monthly ones. Monthly ones is too late, right? So we have this weekly or weekly TSC meeting, and we should track every week to make sure that we are doing the right things. And the transition is happening when TNG is moving out, community is able to continue to run the show. Is the request, yeah.
I will coordinate with Max and TX to get that going. One comment though, is not just the people that are involved with DevOps community or development contributing sources today, but we will also be expanding at least intentionally to go out to end users or prospective end users. I have had in the last week more than 2 people that come up locally inquiring about Magma and so on. So be able to capture them in the and bring them into the tent as well. So thanks.
Thank you. Customer voice is key.
Go ahead, Mark.
Are there any further questions?
Yeah, I mean, I had another question, sorry, like this. What about security? What will happen on the with all the security efforts which we were discussing before? Because frankly speaking, if TNG disappears tomorrow, we and Wavelabs somehow we will be able to continue with the CI/CD pipeline. Maybe it won't be so easy, but we will figure it out. But if security stops, we have product which is not really usable for the end customers. So what is the plan for the security in this during this transition? I mean, are we going to have are we going to continue to analyze the security flows of the code, follow the security bulletins and the security issues, and fix the security problems, or we will just stop the security completely? I mean, maybe this is also for Lucas' question. What is the if there was planned something?
I think that's something.
I can jump in here. I mean, it all comes down to that is something the community will have to jump in and start doing. Right now, Lucas is a paid contractor to help us with this, and he is fantastic at it. However, I don't know if he's going to want to do it just as a hobby for fun. But yeah, this would have to be something that the community needs to pick up, whether it's a subcommittee or something like that. Anything that's currently being done needs to just be picked up by community members, and I'm here to help with any of that, anything that's needed. But yeah, that would be just the community.
So let me comment on the resources that would be required. Security is sometimes very laborious and time consuming. It's the kind of stuff that people wouldn't want to do for free. And in other places, security is not very time consuming. So for example, what it costs me to be on call for new disclosures, it's not that high, right? That's like a day or 2 days here and there where they're time sensitive. I have to jump in and find the time, but once it's done, it's not that big. So I think that that's where the community should draw the line. And I would offer, I mean, I'm offering right now to continue to be a resource for triaging disclosures. But the labor intensive stuff, like what I was doing last week of reviewing the entire list of people with security permissions, is a different story. And that stuff really does have an impact. Like we closed a very large number of problems this year, and it was just through sort of trudging through alerts.
See, if I'm not mistaken, Kendall, what Jordan is saying is like CI/CD job is not the know-how required to do the CI/CD job, even though if it is tough, community can figure it out. Okay, but you can't do that for the security. Security is a specialized skill, right? Specialized know-how that requires a specialized team and the person to help throughout. Right? There's a difference in these two. So what Jordan is, right? You know, I mean, when we are ready to fund CI/CD, which can be taken over by the community, even though if there is a tough, the one that we cannot do, we are asking them to come and do it for hobby. I don't think it's fair. Right?
No, and I understand that. And every other open source project usually will have the member companies who put on their security specialists or whoever else. And what the TSC, as the board has decided, is the TSC will have bucket of funds that they can put towards whether it's hiring Lucas on or hiring any other kind of security people on to keep things running until they kind of figure out a better process. There is a limited number of funds, so it's not like we have an unlimited amount to do all of these things, but if that is something the TSC would be interested in, that is something that is possible.
Okay.
I imagine that 10 hours a week would be probably the least that would make a difference.
May I suggest that this is an important enough issue that we should track, and these are the exactly kind of things we want from the community side to get identified, because ultimately it affects the existing and prospective users. So I'll offer, if that helps, that with a CC to Kendall, if people reach out to me or CC to Max or whatever the group is, I'm happy to start capturing the requirements and thoughts currently at this stage of what we need to do. Understanding the scope, of course, is first step of the problem. So my contact information is in there, sigdar@meta.com, and I'll be happy to start pulling through together with Kendall's help, at least for understanding the impact of it and so on.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan.
Yeah, I think it's important, Lucas, you list down, because I mean, without security, the product is not consumable, right? So I think you should also list down the items that is must, and this know-how is not something that everybody has, right?
Just to be fair, on the top three pieces of feedback that I got from people that I have been talking to, it's a very small subset. The three parts were security, consolidation of Docker support, and questions on ARM support, on ARM CPU. Those are the three top of the things on the list of things that I got back. So I'm very glad that Jordan and Lucas, that you brought up the point. So let's tackle them, let's write them down. We'll make them actionable.
I will create a document that'll be roughly comparable to what Maxim did on his first wave proposal, and we can start from there.
That'll be great. Thank you. Back to you.
So I'm sorry to say this. In that pre-list, but the core engine is missing, right? Like, how are we going to build a state machine that is the engine and the brain of this whole thing, right? If you still look at it, Docker infrastructure, CI/CD infrastructure, security is infrastructure. And I'm not saying it's not core, but it is still the surrounding piece of the core brain, which is a state machine of 4G and 5G stack. That's also something that has to be looked at in TSG and discussed in future TSC.
Sure, let's capture that. And my intention was not to say that the Docker security and ARM support are the only three things that are most important. What I tried to say was, from the very limited scope of this transition that I've been going around and canvassing people to see what they're interested in, those are the top three items that came up on my interaction. That's all. It's a very small subset, very time box subset. So happy to, Kader, please go ahead and figure out whatever is needed with marks and stuff to get that at least identified as a bucket. That's all.
Sure. Thanks.
Yeah, just to clarify, that's just a small proposal to keep or to hand off the things that would I don't know, are prone to fall apart, and where we have the most knowledge, and hand them off to the community. There's a lot else that could be done. There's a lot that would be helpful, and where the TSC can direct funds towards, and where the TSC can decide to support the project. But the scope of the proposal is to hand off what we can hand off right now.
I mean, yeah, there will be another question which we actually didn't even touch. What would be the structure of the new TSC? Are you, I mean, because I've repeated this multiple times, I might sound a little bit arrogant, but mainly the only people who are really contributing on the core itself, on the features, is Wave Labs, and majority of the, let's say, customer implementation and customer testing and porting to ARM is done from Connect 5G. Are you seeing us as part of the new TSC?
Yeah, so the TSC will be, we'll have elections starting either at the end of December or early January to elect a whole new TSC. I'm currently working on a community document that the current TSC will need to vote on in the next week or so to put in place a process, as well as other parameters around who can be on the TSC and whatnot. So that more information will be coming soon. But yes, we will be holding an election to have a whole new TSC, as we have been having some TSC members kind of fall off of the project and are not as active. Hopefully that answers your question.
I mean, technically yes, but not really, because last time when this voting was done, it was done in a way in which, by example, Connect 5G was not able to participate. And as I said, we are the one who was doing all this work for that testing and porting on ARM and supporting the community for ARM.
Yeah,
And,
so
I mean, if the way that voting will be done remains the same,
it will not be the same.
It will. Okay. So this
Yeah, no,
this was my question.
Yeah, it's not gonna be the same. We're actually gonna, we're kind of revamping how the process is gonna be, just because it obviously did not really work well the last time. And yes, we would love to have Connect 5G on the TSC.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
I have a couple very low level security items that I need to get consensus on before this meeting closes out. I know that might not be the right thing at this moment.
I think that is fine. We do have 20 minutes left, Max. Is there any, or Mark or Sam, is there any other things that we need to touch on for the 2023 plan?
Nothing for me. I think everything's on the table now. This is great. Thanks.
Okay.
So, very quickly, Kendall, Max and I was talking last night about putting some notes to the discussion about support that, so that there's a description that we're not exclusively working on Docker and what is the status of the output and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Max, you want to bring it up?
I have not changed the document in that regard, but yeah, it's a good hint. Yeah, the proposal right now focuses on the Debian-based deployment and is less focused on the supporting the Docker-based deployment, as it is less tested. So it's the Docker-based deployment is less complete and less functional. So the writing a proposal in which we write to keep it functional did not fit in the budget or in the constraints. So we the proposal right now focuses on the Debian-based proposal, the Debian-based deployment, and it also has no specific statement regarding ARM support, but there are other community members that have the knowledge in ARM support and that can bring that to the community, and that's not a specific gap that we previously filled. So it's, yeah. Thanks for reminding me to make that explicit.
That's interesting because the way forward is Docker, right?
Yeah, it's.
If that is not included.
It's not included as a statement that we keep that the Docker deployment installable and actionable, since it's mentioned as the way forward, but it's not feature complete, and it's it's not easy to say. So saying to keep that saying to keep something in a pristine state which is not pristine and is not fully functional is like saying we will fix it, and that's not in the scope. We will still support it and we will help with it, and if there are issues arise, we will be happy to work on that, and we have a lot of experience in that. It's just that the expected state is not as good and as easy to describe as the non-Docker deployment state.
Okay, I think the good thing to do is put down the list of things like so mentioned in the Excel sheet, and that will give us an idea. Do we really have 3 months work, and refocus into what really is going to make a difference, which is focusing on Docker.
Well, the forum for the new TSC formation, the town halls, and even before that, is to capture exactly that kind of sentiments, and if necessary, reprioritize or restack within the budget. We're not the US Congress, so we don't have the ability to just work forever with unlimited budget. So that's the intent.
Got it. Soma, maybe we talked in last TSC. Just want to bring it back. There was a representation from Radisys about C++ migration. Do you have any inputs around that? But at least from outbound input point of view, what we strongly believe is changing the C to C, going to C++ will reduce the stability and reliability of the whole system that we have right now. And we just should stop it unless otherwise, if anyone thinks it's important. I would like to get your input if you have any. So.
Well, I can only talk to the existing state of affairs. I do not have an opinion on the C2C++ other than the community. The Radisys project, the C2C++ project is an internal meta work that's going on. I will put it on the list on the state of affairs and we can have the community discuss it at that point.
Okay. Well, I'd like to hear from others in the call.
Sure.
What is your thought process as well? We believe migrating C to C++, it's a lot of architectural structural change. It requires lots of testing to stabilize to what is the current state of the stability with C, right? So yeah, would love your input here. Would love to hear your inputs.
I mean, if I can start, the migration from C to C++, it's a good thing, but it's not critical in at this moment because it's only for the LT, and LT very soon will be on sunset. So, I mean, though it's very good, I don't see it as a critical. As I said, the most critical thing which I see, it's the security, and then yeah, the multi-architecture support, meaning ARM. But this one I don't see it as critical thing.
Jordan and Kader, this is Rafael speaking from OEI. Currently, we were working on a 5G tester. Do you see that as important? Or, I mean, for me, it's also you guys that will be the users of Magma in 5G. I mean, how do you see that? I mean, so that's also something that you guys need to think about. I'm not asking if you for an answer today or within a week. It's just you guys need to think about, is it that important or not? Okay.
I mean, it's definitely important, but at least I can speak for Wave Labs, right? So we have enough test gears invested and enough open source tools we have to test 5G, right? So we are not dependent as Wave Labs for anyone else to support on that.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, similar situation here. We also have our tools, and we have the live systems to test on as well during the verification. But as a concept, testing is quite important. But I don't know at this moment and in this shape, because once again, I'm speaking from Connect 5G perspective and from what do I need to support my customers. And what do I need in order to assure that my customers will feel very comfortable taking Magma as their solution?
So one question, Rafael. So by December, we will be committing some test cases, like, at least that base infrastructure will be there, and any test cases that needs to be added, that can be added. So at least what we were thinking was...
Okay, so the main difference compared to all other like CNG, I mean, I am not sponsored for this activity just for Magma. I mean, I'm sponsored also for OEI to test our own 5G core. So we will continue working on that. For me, the main issue is, I would say, is for me, it's easier to test with the OEI 5G core than with the Magma core, because Magma core is so painful to deploy. So it's just a matter of how much effort I'm putting into testing with Magma. It's not. So we could have some GitHub actions that are deploying within the Magma realm in iteration of the 5G tester that we are developing, but for me, it's not my main objective so far. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point, Rafael, because see, this testing is of two things, right? One is the actually creating the test plan and the test scripts, right? Whether using the open source or the commercial tools to test Magma. The second thing is bringing that into the CI/CD and creating the trigger to do that. So my understanding was the later part is something that our DevOps contractors were doing it. Is that right?
In fact, we are also some people in our team that are, doing some DevOps and CI for Magma, but not full time. It's just so we were planning to do that, but it's not. For me, it's more okay. We are still in the phase of developing the tester, and for us, we are not using Magma 5G Core to test the tester. Okay, you see what I mean? It's so complex to use compared to our own core. Okay, so it's more okay. So if you are telling us, okay, guys, you internally you have your own testers that certainly are much better than we are developing right now. I would say the tech now right now. Yes, okay. The main issue what I see that is people that will contribute later on the 5G part of the Magma core. Currently in CI at the GitHub action level, there is nothing that is testing 5G. Is that correct? Or is that my understanding correct?
So, sorry, you meant that whoever is building the 4G, 5G stack, they will take responsibility of building the unit and integration test cases. Is that what?
No, I'm thinking correctly in the GitHub actions that we are doing on GitHub. Okay, do we have 5G testing?
I don't think that we have integration testing for 5G.
Yeah, so that's why we were supposed to do that. And so for me, it's because we cannot plug a paid RAN emulator that, for example, that you guys are using at WaveLab, that you are using at Connect 5G, that we are doing also at OAI. We are at some point we had a 5G RAN emulator that we paid, and we could not put that in the Magma CI.
Isn't there something running at WaveLabs that is contributed to the dashboard, to the CI dashboard that does these tests?
Yeah, that's
yes,
right.
Sorry.
So
Yeah, go ahead, Yogesh, please.
Yes, thanks. We do it every build so that our results are published. All the control plane testing and the data plane testing results get populated in the CI dashboard.
So we have 5G integration tests running in CI on pull requests contributed by you. Yeah.
Yes, so any commit goes in, this test suite will be executed.
And for the unit test, Yogesh, we use this open source, right, that we have built and that can be contributed back to the community. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So unit testing is already in the code. Like, so anytime we add a code, we write the equivalent unit test. So that is already part of the pre-commit or pre-merge process, which gets executed on every pull request before it goes in. So it's like a required test to pass before we mark it to merge. So the unit testing is already part of the GitHub, and the post commit, the tools which we use for testing the 5G, that's part of the dashboard. So the unit testing is already part of the coding.
Got it. Got it. And well, is there any open source that is used for integration testing right now? And
so we have used 3 or 4 open sources for testing, but it's not part of this. When you post commit, they are not executed, but we use it quite frequently at our site. Whatever is in the dashboard is the Spirent and other tools which gets linked to the dashboard. So, but we tested Magma with other open sources.
okay, thank you.
I think that this is going to be an issue that'll be front and center for the new TSC and kind of the post governing board project. There are important questions about what to build next. And I think that the C++ migration is going to continue to be high priority. I think that the C code has a lot of the oldest, most risky parts of Magma from a security perspective, and the C++ migration will be kind of a fundamental part of raising Magma's security performance. But I also think that doing more depends on figuring out the long-term stability and plan for making improvements. But I do think there are security issues lurking there. Thank you.
That's a good point. But I think right now, the way that AC is, we need to give a stable product to the customer that works, and make many to adopt Magma. Right now, the challenge that, at least I can share it from Wave Labs, like a lot of our customers are dropping out of Magma, right? So that we have to change. And once we get to a stage where we have lots of adoption, then community will automatically grow, and then the long-term strategic roadmaps will eventually happen, right, Lucas? But what's more important, I believe, is right now to ensure we bring people and increase the adoption of Magma. And what is required to do that is important, right? Like Docker is key, right? The state machine of 4G, 5G is key. So those are the things that we have to probably discuss together in the following TSC. Yeah. You get my point, Lucas? Even though
yes, very, very much. I mean, I think that being responsive to users and deployments is something that's at hand, and bringing Connect 5G in as well, and then focusing on what the market wants is kind of a great way to structure future investments. So yeah, I totally see your point.
Thanks, Lucas.
Okay, and with that, we only have a couple minutes left. Is there any other business? I know, Lucas, you had a few things. Did you want to go ahead and bring that up, or do you want to just take it to Slack?
I could do this really quickly.
Okay, go for it.
These are kind of some pro forma items that do need TSC attention. I propose to update the vulnerability reporting process to use a new tool from GitHub called Private Vulnerability Reporting. And to do that, I need a buy-in from the community. I think it's a really simple, low risk change. What is the community's thoughts? Or in particular, is there buy-in?
I mean, this is what we discussed, that we can control who is the receivers of these messages afterwards, correct?
Correct, exactly.
Yeah, then I mean, from my perspective, it's good.
Are there any, could you call a vote, Kendall? Or should we do it in the channel?
We are not.
Yeah, it doesn't look like we have quorum, but we can do it in Slack though.
Okay. Next, I propose to, so I've done a lot of trimming of people with security access, and I need to propose that we remove these groups. Team Facebook has 72 people, and so on. You can see the list right here. Are there any thoughts on this? I know that should be delicate. So I'll just put this out there. I think the risks are very low. If we remove somebody who needs to be there, we can easily re-add them. And the risks of leaving all these people are high.
Yeah, I think this would be another thing that we would need to get the TSC to vote on before we move forward.
Okay, I'll create a proposal and put it in the channel.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lucas.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, great. With just a couple seconds left, is there any other business that people would like to bring up? Okay, if not, then we can go ahead and end. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Great
Bye-bye.
session, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
thanks everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.